The 1980s were a time of tremendous change, a decade that teetered between the analog past and the digital future. The world was shifting in ways that many had never imagined. The Cold War was still casting its shadow, with tensions rising and falling across the globe, while at home, the dawn of personal computers and mobile phones began to hint at a completely new world. People born into this world didn't have the luxury of seeing things stay the same. They grew up in an environment where change was constant, and it wasn't just political or technological, it was cultural too. The music, fashion, and media of the 80s exploded with creativity, while the economy was in a constant state of flux. This generation didn't just witness change, they lived through it, adapting as new technologies started to shape everyday life. But it wasn't just a time of excitement and progress, it was also a time of uncertainty. The sense that the world could tip at any moment loomed large, and this generation felt it. They were on the front lines of an unpredictable world, and they learned quickly that nothing could be taken for granted. They didn't have the luxury of a steady, unchanging reality. They had to grow up fast, constantly adjusting to an ever-shifting landscape. The 1980s generation learned early on that to survive in a world like this, they had to be tough, adaptable, and ready to face whatever came next. The 1980s generation was born into a world that demanded quick adaptation. The shift from analog to digital was happening in lightning speed, and they were the ones who had to keep up. They watched the world change before their eyes, from the introduction of personal computers to the first mobile phones. This was the generation that learned how to use technology without being taught, figuring it out as it came. They didn't have manuals or step-by-step guides. They had to dive in and adapt, often with little help. As they navigated the rise of the internet and the expansion of media, they also faced societal shifts. Economic recessions and job insecurity were common, and the future wasn't promised to anyone. But they didn't shy away from these challenges. Instead, they developed a unique kind of resilience, one that blended practicality with optimism. They learned to face the unknown without being paralyzed by fear. The 1980s generation became skilled at handling uncertainty, constantly adjusting to changes in the economy, technology, and the world around them. They didn't have the luxury of a steady, predictable life, but they didn't need it. They learned to roll with the punches, always figuring out how to move forward no matter what, and that adaptability became one of their strongest traits. The 1980s generation was shaped by a unique blend of optimism and caution. They grew up with an exciting future ahead, fueled by rapid technological advancements, but they also witnessed the lingering effects of the political and economic challenges that marked the decades before. This balance of hope and wariness defined their emotional landscape. While many were enthusiastic about the possibilities of a more connected world, they were also aware of the uncertainty that came with it. They didn't grow up with the overprotection that later generations might have experienced. Instead, they learned to navigate life with a quiet resilience. The 1980s generation was emotionally tough, but they weren't taught to display vulnerability openly. Instead, they learned how to carry pain and frustration, not by hiding it, but by pushing through. This sense of inner strength came from experiencing a time of personal and societal change without having all the answers. They developed an emotional complexity that allowed them to adapt to both the excitement of innovation and the challenges of economic instability. While they didn't always express their feelings in conventional ways, they valued loyalty, endurance, and the ability to stand firm when things got tough. This generation didn't need to be told how to be resilient. They lived it every day. The mindset of the 1980s generation was built on self-reliance and adaptability. In a world full of change, they didn't wait for validation or direction from others. They learned to trust their own judgment. They knew how to move forward without looking for permission. This generation didn't romanticize struggle. They respected it. They understood that life wasn't always going to be easy, and comfort wasn't a guarantee. They didn't chase after comfort or stability like some later generations did. Instead, they learned to stay grounded and find their way in a world that was always in flux. They didn't inherit a set of rules about emotions or success. What they knew came from surviving a rapidly changing world. This created a rare mental toughness where they didn't need applause or recognition to keep going. They didn't focus on making everything perfect. They focused on making progress. They were never afraid to face challenges head-on, knowing that the obstacles they faced were just another part of life. While the world around them shifted, they remained steady, trusting in their own ability to adapt and keep moving forward. Their strength came from being comfortable with discomfort and knowing that resilience wasn't about avoiding difficulties, but about facing them with confidence. The legacy of the 1980s generation is often understated, but their resilience and adaptability continue to shape the world today. They lived through the dawn of the digital age, witnessed the collapse of old institutions, and faced constant societal and economic change, yet they never let it break them. Their strength lies in their quiet ability to endure, to keep moving forward without seeking attention or applause. They didn't build their resilience for praise, they built it because they had to. While they may appear reserved or distant to some, underneath that surface is a generation that knows how to survive emotionally without the need for constant validation. They carry their experiences in their actions, not their words. Today, the 1980s generation stands firm in a world that is still changing rapidly. They have faced more transitions than most will ever see in a lifetime, and that's what makes them unique. They've seen institutions collapse, cultures shift, and truths be rewritten, yet they have never been afraid of change. They meet it with a calm strength that younger generations often don't understand. The 1980s generation doesn't need to shout about their resilience. It's visible in their actions, their patience, and their ability to endure. In a world that constantly demands more, they have already proven that it's not about doing more. It's about knowing how to endure and thrive amidst the noise.